Welcome to CouncilCast, news bites and insights from the Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers. I'm Rob Boyce, Director of Market Intelligence and Insights here at the Council. I'm joined today here with Michael Furlong, founder and CEO of client submission workflow management company, Indio Technologies. Mike, your background is not necessarily insurance focused, but you do offer a unique perspective from the consumer standpoint. Can you talk a little bit about your background and where you saw a specific opportunity in the commercial insurance sector, and more specifically, potential opportunities in the broker space?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me, Robert. Before Indio, I actually had founded another technology company, and that technology company focused on selling software to financial advisors. It wasn't necessarily related to this, but each year my insurance broker would send me a E&O application and D&O application, and those applications often came as blank PDFs with last year's PDF filled out as a separate attachment in an email. And I had to fill out these blank forms year over year, even though 90% of the data was the same as what I had filled in on last year's professional liability apps. And so that was sort of my first introduction to some of the manual aspects of commercial insurance. Now, I loved my commercial insurance broker. He's still my broker today, actually, and he provided me a ton of valuable advice. So, I think the broker is really irreplaceable, but a lot of what they do is manual, and that's sort of the first taste I got of that manual process. And then when that company was wrapping up, some of the investors, recommended I look into commercial insurance, and I had that memory of filling out those E&O and D&O apps, and that kind of was the idea that spawned Indio Technologies, and we're obviously very focused on automating the process of filling out applications and making sure that the client has a really positive experience where they're not having to re-enter a lot of the same information, and where manual work is really removed from the submission process on both the account manager or agent half as well as the insured half.
Gotcha. So that being said, can you talk a little bit more about the underlying technology behind your product, specifically enabling the broker and streamlining some inefficiencies that you've experienced personally across the insurance industry?
Yeah. So what we do at Indio is we work with insurance agencies, and we give them an online platform that's branded for them. So their logo is on the top left. It looks like their system, and they can use it with the insured to collect the data and information needed for the new business or renewal submission process. Essentially, what we do is we digitize over 3,000 carrier supplemental applications. So we make all of these previously paper apps or PDF apps into digital forms. And by making it digital, it allows us to map all of the common data fields between those forms, such that when you're filling out a renewal submission, you don't have to send your client a blank E&O app, a blank D&O app, because it's going to pre-populate with data from last year's application if it was done in Indio, or other applications that are being worked on. And the system is effectively smart. And so we work with agents to also digitize any proprietary questionnaires they have. And we're really laser focused on just this one specific problem and making the client experience of filling out applications not an email with 10 attachments that they have to print, but a link that you send the client, and they get walked through the application process in a wizard-like manner, in a step-by-step process where they're only answering the questions that are relevant to them, and they're able to e-sign all the applications right there, and then the completed forms are emailed to the agent in a PDF format so they can go to market with it.
Right, yeah. So from a client perspective, you want to dive a little deeper into your product's offerings to the consumer. Clearly, the influx of technology across all industries, what we've seen has dramatically changed the consumer expectations. And generally, the client journey is now more streamlined, more customizable, and on demand. But the insurance industry has, been a little bit behind some of these trends. So can you speak to the overall, how Indio leverages the overall client journey?
Yeah. I think what you're seeing across industries is a consumer expectation of a digital experience, and a digital and a fast experience, an experience that's at their fingertips where they can work on it in their own time, and that is smart. And so when we think about the client journey specifically, we are really trying to provide them with something that can be accessed on their mobile phone, could be accessed on an iPad. It's a link. They can click it. They can start to work on it. We're going to track all the changes they make. We're going to notify the agent. And really, we're turning a pen and paper process into something that is online driven. At the same time, for an agent, it's really a lightweight solution that they could adopt and implement in a month and start having meaningful impacts on the way that clients are perceiving their agency, which, agents provide extremely, extremely valuable advice, and they need to continue to focus more on that advice and less on administrative tasks and paperwork. And that's exactly what our goal is, and why we're focusing on kind of modernizing the client experience and reducing some of those inefficiencies.
Great. So from shifting from the client to the broker or intermediary, you mentioned that although tech has the potential to disrupt the industry, the insurance industry, you would consider Indio an enabler. So how are you currently working and partnering with brokers, and ultimately, how does Indio allow them to focus on what really matters, which is serving the role as the trusted advisor?
Yeah, absolutely. So at an agency, a lot of capital is spent each year on service staff, and a lot of those service staff are spending time on manual processes, on filling out applications, on tracking what's changed to schedule data, and really, emailing clients and manually kind of tracking what they're doing. And the Indio platform, because of the data mapping capabilities, because it provides standardization to a process, because it's all e-signature, provides a lot of time savings when it comes to filling out applications and forms. And so if you think about that, that's time that can be used to spend on other more value add advice-based tasks. And look, at the end of the day, the client's only got so much time. And so if they have, if there's 10 units of time and 6 to 7 of them are being spent on the logistics of how to fill out an app from an administrative perspective, you might only have 3 more units of time to talk to them or get their ear to talk about the risk. And what we do is we're going to limit that amount of units that's spent on the administrative tasks and help you streamline it with an online platform, not replacing the agent, but helping to empower them to become more of a risk advisor.
Right. So that being said, there's technologies. There's a lot of noise right now, to say the least, in the insurance tech space, and it's affecting all areas across the value chain and ultimately all lines of business. But what parts of this value chain do you think that technology cannot replace or could even do a disservice?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. People will oftentimes call us InsurTech all the time, and I almost like to not think of us as InsurTech and just a software provider, because when I think of InsurTech, I think of companies that are trying to replace people in the value chain. They're trying to replace a broker, an MGA, maybe they're trying to become a carrier, and I think some of these things are really, really difficult to do. I think replacing an insurance agent in the mid-market space is with an online platform. It's just not gonna happen. The carriers aren't ready for it. You can't quote risks in that amount of time. Right. And the business wants an advisor. They want the advice. TD Ameritrade, Schwab, they haven't removed the investment advisor from their jobs. The investment advisor merely uses those systems to power their administrative tasks. And so, there's other areas I think as well that technology is going to have a difficult time breaking into. But the broker space is kind of what I know the best, and I'm very confident. Maybe there'll be some spots within small commercial where online rating and things like that can, especially driven by the carriers, can take some market share from the brokers. But outside of that, I think brokers are here to stay, but they need to become more of risk advisors.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving back to your underlying technology, API has certainly been a buzzword in insurance recently, but I think it does speak a lot to increasing connectivity and streamlining some currently inefficient business processes. How is Indio leveraging your open API approach? And you also mentioned the white labeling your product. So what are you offering in a little bit more detail from the behind the scenes white label product to both cut costs and save time?
Yeah, absolutely. So our product is entirely white labeled for the agents that we work with. It's got their logo on it. and it feels like their system, but they didn't have to build it themselves. We power it, and we're constantly updating it and building new features. Something very different about us than a lot of the other technology players that agents and brokers and carriers are used to is that we're constantly building new features. We're constantly innovating, and that's because we're lightweight. We're a newer company, and we have an incredible percentage of our budget that's allocated to software engineers. On the API side, look, we're constantly trying to build new features that make it easier for our client base to get the data that's entered into our system to different places. And one of those places that's highly prioritized is getting data and information to the insurance carriers. And so we have a kind of common RESTful API that insurance carriers can use to extract information from our system for the agents that they work with. We're not a rating system. We never plan to be. It's merely sending the data from our system to other places more programmatically to help other people in the value chain save time.
Great. So in Indio, clearly, you guys have experienced some significant growth, especially compared to other players in the market. You mentioned, you're a technology provider. Has scalability been an issue for your firm, and what are some struggles you're currently dealing with, as well as some success stories you've had in the past, let's say, 6 months or so?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, starting a software business is a little bit different than starting a insurance value chain based company, an agent, an MGA, a carrier. And the reason for that is because of the upfront investment that needs to be made in the software. And you spend a lot of money and time and effort upfront perfecting things. And in this world, every agent, every broker has a niche focus. They have a specific feature they want. And so a lot of the kind of, not necessarily struggles, it's been very positive, but a lot of the things that we've had to sift through is prioritizing features. We build our whole entire product roadmap based on what our client base tells us is important to them. But prioritizing that, understanding what may not be relevant for the whole audience and is just relevant for one agent is sort of kind of some of the trade-offs that we've had to make. In the past 3 to 6 months, we've experienced tremendous growth. We've more than doubled our company from a growth standpoint, and headcount continues to grow really meaningfully. And from our perspective, I think we're starting to see an inflection point where we've built a really solid core system that provides value that's used every day by agencies as large as some of the top 10 national agencies all the way down to very small agencies, and so we're at a point now where we can really invest in scaling the business based on our core product.
Great. So let's shift and talk about embracing a culture of innovation. Obviously, this is a huge concern in our industry right now, and we do have to take on new types of talents and new skill sets to evolve with the industry. So can you speak to Indio's, your culture, your leadership team, and how you're attracting technology both from the tech space as well as professionals with an insurance background?
Yeah, so something really important to Indio is to have a good mix of people that know software and how to build a technology business, and people that know the insurance agent landscape. We have a number of folks at the company as well as advisors that have legacy, long-time experience as agents. And like I said, we really build our entire product roadmap out based on the experience that we have with our clients. From a technology standpoint, we're based in Silicon Valley in San Francisco, and it's kind of the heart of technical innovation. And so we are really positioned very well to kind of see the newest and best of what technology has to offer, while also being able to pull in a lot of the insurance expertise from the folks that we've hired that were formerly in insurance or that are our partner clients.
Absolutely. So that being said, can you see a clear distinction between your tech-minded folks compared to those you've recruited within the industry on strategies and then how they operate and priorities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is absolutely. The people within the industry are much more relationship focused. Right. They have much more of a, it's not as simple as that type of attitude, and they're oftentimes right. I think one of the things that the attitude that a technology-minded salesperson or engineer has is kind of a get the product out, low touch. If someone doesn't want it, don't have to talk to them anymore. A little bit more transactionally minded. The insurance mindset is totally different. It's highly professional, highly consultative, and it's founded on relationships. And so how do we merge those two from a cultural standpoint is a lot of what we're constantly trying to figure out at Indio. We want to keep the culture and pace of innovation high, but at the same time, we need to have a attitude of being a consultant to our clients and being professional, ingrained within the minds of everyone that works in Indio. So you come into our office and there's a ping pong table, but there's also traditional conference rooms, and it just looks a little bit like a hybrid from what you'd see if you walked into a Facebook or something like that. And that's a great question, because that is the kind of dichotomy that we see in our culture.
Gotcha, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more change going forward. And so let's end on a big picture question. So where do you see Indio moving in the next 12 to 18 months? Where are you currently focusing your efforts? And one example would be, does Indio have any plans to move towards other segments or other industries or move upstream?
Yeah. So we have no plans to move to other industries at this point. We want to stay laser focused on the insurance sector. I think that in the next 12 to 18 months, our highest priority will be continuing to really modernize that client experience that agents are able to provide. Additionally, we are working in some experimental phases with some insurance carriers to help them receive some of the information that comes from our system. That's likely what the next 12 to 18 months will hold. A lot of that is there's a lot of kind of, boring, if you will, improvements that we're working on to our platform that I think will make it more usable. Things like, certain auto email reminders or pre-renewal checklists, or being able to automatically send an email to the insurance carrier from our system, or really getting the naming conventions right from an intuitive standpoint around terminology like submissions and entities and things like that. So that's kind of what I would say the next 12 to 18 months holds for us.
Well, awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much, Michael, and we really appreciate your time here today. And on behalf of the council, we're really excited to see what's in store for Indio as well as yourself. And again, this is Rob Boyce with the Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers, and thank you for tuning into CouncilCast. Take care and talk soon.
Thanks a lot, Rob.